Hello, this will continue our study in the book of Ecclesiastes. Today we will be looking at Ecclesiastes chapters 8 and 9. Keeping in mind, again, the purpose of the book, the preacher's question that he searched out the answer for was, what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? And the answer that he gives is vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And again, the idea of vanity is the idea of a breath. What gain there is has very little substance to it. What substance there is does not last very long. And so the book of Ecclesiastes asks and answers that question. And in the process, the preacher makes numerous observations about life. And we'll pick those up here in chapter 8. I say, keep the king's command because of God's oath to him. Be not hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand in an evil cause, for he does whatever he pleases. For the word of the king is supreme, and who may say to him, what are you doing? Whoever keeps the command will know no evil thing, and the wise heart will know the proper time and the just way. For there is a time and a way for everything, although man's trouble lies heavy on him. For he does not know what is to be, for who can tell him how it will be? No man has power to retain the spirit or power over the day of death. There is no discharge from war, nor will wickedness deliver those who are given to it. All this I observed while applying my heart to all that is done under the sun, when man had power over man to his hurt. Now, you and I are not familiar with living under a kingship where whatever the king says goes. And rarely, if ever, did anyone ever say to the king, what are you doing? And so the preacher makes the observation to be careful about your behavior, to be careful about what you say around the king, because he noticed that individuals who left the presence of the king real quickly probably did not like what the king was saying, or may have taken a different tact than what the king had decided, and would therefore get into trouble. And so he basically says, be still, do what the king says, and don't argue with the king. Another observation that he makes, beginning in verse 10, then I saw the wicked buried. They used to go in and out of the holy place and were praised in the city where they had done such things. This also is vanity, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily. The heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I know that it will be well with those who fear God, because they fear before him. But it will not be well with the wicked, neither will he prolong his days like a shadow, because he does not fear before God. So one of the things that the preacher noticed, and he says it was vanity to him, it was frustrating to him, it didn't make any sense. And most of us have seen the same thing, and that is the wicked buried. But it's not just the fact that the wicked are buried, but that they were praised in the city where they had done their wicked things. Most of us, if not all of us, have had the occasion to go to a funeral of an individual that we knew was not a godly individual, and yet many, 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 many good things were said about them. And we've had the opportunity to sit there and to listen to whoever is officiating at the funeral say all kinds of good things about this individual who is lying there in the casket, when we know their life was filled with wicked and horrible things. And he says, that's vanity. That's just absurd that these things would happen. It's very frustrating. He then notes another observation, again, which we are familiar with, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. And again, one of the problems in our society is that we have all of these laws and these regulations to keep people in order. And when people break the laws, sometimes it takes months and months and years, if ever, before they are ever brought to justice. Those of us who are children have had the experience probably with our parents telling us, I told you not to do that. I'm not going to tell you again, only to do it, and have our parents tell us, I told you once to quit that, and I'm not going to tell you again. And we soon learn that our parents aren't going to do anything to us, and so we just keep doing the things that we are not supposed to. Those of us who are parents have probably had the experience of telling our children, now look, I told you 3 times to quit that. And again, the preacher made the observation that if we don't execute justice speedily, then the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. He makes another observation, though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life. And again, in that culture, in that day and age, a long life was seen as a blessing from God. And so here's an individual who does not respect God, who is a sinner, does all of these evil things, and yet he has a long life. And he says, even though that's the case, I know that it will be well with those who fear God, but it will not be well with the wicked, because he does not fear God. Then in verse 14, he says, there is a vanity that takes place on earth, that there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. And so again, one of the things that these people understood, if you will, is similar to what you and I understand, that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. Good things happen to those who do good deeds. Bad things happen to those people who do bad deeds. And so he saw this, but he saw the reverse of that. He says there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. There are righteous people who are suffering. And there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. There are wicked people who are prospering. And he noticed that, and he observed that, and he said, that's just absurd. That's frustrating. It ought not to be that way. And so in verse 15, he draws a conclusion again, which is very familiar to the other conclusions that he has drawn. I commend joy. For man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. And so he said that in spite of all these frustrations, in spite of all these things that go on in life that don't seem right, enjoy yourself. Then in verse 16, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep, then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it out. And again, one of the things that the preacher observed as he observed life was, it's hard to figure out why things are the way that they are. In Ecclesiastes Chapter 9, the preacher continues with some more observations that he's made about life. But all this I laid to heart, examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to all. Also, the hearts of the children of man are full of evil, and madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that they go to the dead. But he who is joined with all the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. So he makes an observation that everybody is going to die. As we noted earlier in the letter, he had in this book, he had also made that same observation. He says it's the same for all, the good and the evil, the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. And he calls it an evil that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to everybody. And again, it is not the idea that evil is not the idea of sinfulness or badness. It is just the idea that he finds it very frustrating. He finds it not fair that good people are going to die just like wicked people are going to die. And again, it was very frustrating to him. But he also makes the point that he who is joined with the living has hope. For a living dog is better than the dead lion. And the reason that is so is because the living know that they are going to die, but the dead don't know anything. Their love, their hate, their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. And so the reason that the living is better than the dead is because the living know they're going to die, so they have an opportunity to change the way that they are living. But once you're dead, any chance of doing anything good is gone. And so in verse 6 and verse 7, he draws another conclusion, very familiar. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. So again, here's that same conclusion that he has drawn several times in this book. Eat your bread with joy. Drink your wine and be merry. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, because that's your portion and that's the reward of your toil. Enjoy yourself. Yes, there are going to be things in life that are frustrating, that are vexing. There are things that go on that don't seem fair. But he says, accept them. Try to change them if you can. Try to ease suffering if you can. Try to be just. Try to eliminate wickedness, but you're never going to be able to. And so enjoy life. Another observation that he makes in verse 11, again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. For man does not know his time. Like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare, excuse me, so the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. And so again, one of the things that he noticed is that the strong individual does not always win the battle. The wise individual does not always have enough food to eat. The intelligent individual is not always wealthy. But time and chance happen to them all. And again, nothing wrong with making plans, nothing wrong with having a schedule. But understand, we are not in control. Sometimes things just happen over which we have absolutely no control whatsoever. And then finally in verse 13, another observation. I have also seen this example of wisdom under the sun, and it seemed great to me. There was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor, wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. The words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. And so he saw this example of wisdom. He sees a city that is besieged. And in that city, there was a poor man, and yet he was a very wise individual. And by his wisdom, by his insight, by his understanding of cause and effect, he delivered the city, but nobody remembered him. And he found that to be frustrating. But he still says that even though nobody remembered the poor wise man, wisdom is still better. And so he says, the words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war. And so even though nobody remembered the poor wise man, he still says wisdom is better.